All right, I am going from one great guest to another great guest, especially on this particular day, the 200th episode of the show. Arnaud, you have been a fantastic guest with me for the entire time, and I deeply appreciate you joining me on this day, man. How you doing this morning? Well, evening for you. How are you doing this evening?
Afternoon, actually. I'm doing fine, Jamal. How are you?
I am doing well. I'm doing well. Arnaud Develay, he is author, political analyst, international lawyer specializing in international criminal law, and his book, which is extraordinarily relevant today, Foreign Entanglements, Biden, Ukraine, and the Fracturing of America's Political Consensus. Arnaud, we were talking about this before bringing you on. You pointed out, he was like, this is what my book is about. You said it flat out, this is what my book is about. So Zelensky makes moves on NABU and SAPO. These were organizations that were created immediately after the fall of Ukraine in 2014 when the coup took place. And they were effectively instruments of the US government, FBI, CIA, working through the US Embassy in Ukraine in order to affect and oversee Ukraine. They weren't elected by Ukraine. They weren't in Ukrainian bodies. They were foreign bodies. They were supposedly part of the rationale for Ukraine going into the European Union, which at this point doesn't seem like it's going to take place either way. But the organizations persisted, poorly persisted, because Ukraine is the most corrupt country on the planet. And it's not like the corruption eased up, moved, like change or anything. And yet these organizations continue to exist. What is going on with this? And why is Zelensky all of a sudden making moves to kneecap these organizations and subordinate them to the office of the presidency?
Well, there are two schools of thoughts as to what's going on in as far as today's developments are concerned in Kiev. The first school of thought is to essentially attribute to the Kiev regime the intent on getting under control those organizations which present themselves as anti-corruption and independent from the prosecutor's office, in as far as what has been known for quite some time. Some people have spoken about it going back to 2023. There was an attempt by the Republican then minority in Congress to open an investigation into where did the money go amidst strong rumors that a lot of money was being embezzled. And so now we have a situation where, as it seems that some of the flow of weapons are being somewhat worked out, the gravy train is about to get an injection again, and with the same people getting, being on the take. And I guess the idea is to prevent, to the extent there's a change of political atmosphere in Washington. There are rumors that Zelensky himself might be on the chopping block. And of course, if you've seen the movie Nobody,
Right. Right.
yeah, corruption bearing on pilfering funds from your main sponsor is not looked on too kindly. Let's put it this way. So I guess all this motivated Zelensky and his inner circles to move preemptively. And it's interesting because the idea is it's all presented as trying to get American U.S. influence out of the country. So I love it.
Well, they said Russian influence. Zelensky's thing was like,
I'm not even gonna go there. I know, it's crazy.
He comes out and makes a video. He says the Russians had
The
infiltrated these organizations.
Yes.
And so he had to raid
Yes.
all, like, I think it was like dozens, like 70 different raids or something like that, in order
That's
to get
right.
somebody who was leaking information to the Russians.
Traffic tickets. I ain't lying. This is what they were arrested and interrogated for. Traffic tickets. So there's no, of course, Russian influence.
Amazing.
As you rightly pointed out in your introduction, those agencies are purely U.S. construct.
Yes.
And they were put into place at the time to set up the narrative in as far as people within, remnants of the old Yanukovych regime who might still be willing to, denounce the new state of affair. And those agencies were basically set up by Washington to make sure those people were subjected to gag order and taken out of commission, essentially, neutralized, so they would not, be a problem. As they would be solid people solid people with whom we could work, to quote Biden.
Give me
So,
your take on Trump.
yeah.
I want your take on this. This is what Trump.
So that's the second school of thought. I'm getting to it. So the second
okay.
school of thought is that we have this Epstein affair going on, and obviously you got to create a counter flare, right? So
Right.
the counter flare is what we're hearing now, all over the airwaves and podcasts or throughout the internet, which bears on the 2016 interference in the U.S. election, which, as we all know, was trotted out as a collusion, initially a collusion, alleged collusion between then President-elect Trump and the Russians, Russia.
Yep.
And now we know that, first we had the Mueller report, which basically, this was in spring 2019, conceded that there was no collusion. Then we had the Durham report, which essentially, transformed, the touchdown, through the, kick between the two poles, to make sure that, and despite those official reports, federal employees, special prosecutor, and all, that trope somehow kept being, trotted out in the media.
Yep.
And so, and now more than ever before, owing to the Epstein, I think the Epstein thing is really what triggered the White House to somehow, revive. And it's a legitimate claim, because no one was ever brought into account for this.
Right.
But, so the idea would be also that the Democrats knew about the Epstein. There's also a school of thought that, the Democrats knew about everything that's on the Epstein list. And to the extent they're trying now to revive themselves politically by promoting the narrative that Trump might have something to do with it, Trump is obligated to somehow, go after them. There might have been some kind of a Cold War truce, you don't bother me on this, I won't bother you guys on that. But now that you want to go full out on the Epstein, that I'm going after you after, Crossfire Hurricane. And this is where we are right now. So it's all connected. The whole thing is connected, and the timing couldn't be more somehow perfect, because it revives something that had been buried. And if anything, Zelensky acting the way he does feeds into this suspicion that there might be still evidence available, in the NABU archives or what have you, which needs to be somehow tidied up. Because the thing is, Zelensky wasn't president yet, but the administration, the bureaucratic apparatus was in place. And so, and we all know that it was not as much Russian interference as Ukrainian interference in the 2016 presidential election. And thus, I think it was the first impeachment born out of the phone call between Trump and Zelensky in late 2019, somehow was a panic reaction of the Democrats at the time. Because they might have been thinking that, as we were getting close to the 2020 election, they would be found out as having engineered the whole thing in the first place. Let's recall that Giuliani visited Kiev a few times, met with former Ukrainian MP, Andrei Derkash, who was the first to alert to this. And now we have this guy, former Servant of the People Party member, Alexander Dubinsky, who still somewhat, it kind of amazes me. Ukraine is a very strange ecosystem. People disappear. And at the same time, you've got a guy who seems to have a lot of information, who's in jail right now on charges of corruption, but who's still allowed to tweet out of jail. It's pretty strange.
Like he does videos.
I know, yeah. So now the guy is saying there's actually more than the 2016. There's actually the 2020 version of the Crossfire Hurricane. So this opens up yet another kind of worm, because it's like the little engine that could, the tree that keeps on giving. Because we also know that the Trump campaign was monitored and surveilled during the 2024 election campaign.
Yep.
So it's a continuing, ongoing crime, where there's no statute of limitation. It starts in 2016, in July 2016, with that Black Ledger concoction, accusing then Trump campaign director Paul Manafort of being on the take from the former, the Yanukovych regime.
Yes.
This was debunked because everybody who allegedly collected had their name next to the amount of monies, and there were signatures of those people, attesting that they received whatever monies. But on the line where Manafort's name is listed, there's no signature. So don't act. I mean, and then we never found.
If I'm not mistaken,
say what?
Didn't he get jail time for that? I thought he got jail time for that.
Manafort?
Yeah,
Paul Manafort.
To try to go after Trump. They were trying to get a hearing on Trump, and I thought they pinched him for that.
Well, as far as the Ukraine investigation is concerned, they dragged his name in the mud for a while until they realized that it was not politically feasible, and it might actually be going a step too far, and that essentially the Russiagate was doing what it was supposed to be doing and some. So there was no need in trying to be rigorous in pursuing somebody of a crime he did not commit. And so they came up with the excuse that Manafort, not being a Ukrainian citizen, was immune from prosecution, which is ridiculous on its face, as if you could somehow invoke immunity on account of your nationality for a crime that you allegedly committed elsewhere abroad. I mean, you visit a place, you are availing yourself to the laws of the country you visit. But this is what they came up with to somewhat evacuate, the whole thing. So, but this is it. This goes back to 2016. But again, it would have never really grown out of proportion and revived itself in such a dramatic fashion as we've seen the last few days, if it wasn't for the Democrats refusing to let the Epstein thing go. So it all starts.
Go ahead. No, please finish. No, I'm
sorry. I was done. Go ahead.
I have a hypothesis. First, I want to get your take on this, because you wrote the book on these entanglements. This is Donald Trump, and listen to what he says here, and I want to get your take on and your response.
Biden gave away $350 billion worth of equipment, or cash. Worse than equipment, cash. So we want to find out about that someday, I guess, right? But buy their own equipment. But I have a feeling they didn't spend every dollar on the equipment. But Biden gave away $350 billion.
Now, Trump is saying this at the exact same time where they are going after Zelensky for going after an organization that was investigating Zelensky for corruption. So, meaning, in one sense, you have Zelensky who's trying to solidify his political space. And in doing so, he's like, we're going to get rid of these two organizations because of the Russians have infiltrated them. And what people believe in Ukraine and what people have been reporting here is, well, these organizations have started to investigate Zelensky and his circle of people. And so Zelensky decided to make a preemptive move to get rid of him because he didn't want to be investigated because he's guilty of something. Meaning, if I got to get rid of the prosecutor, the first thing people are going to say, why did you have to get rid of the prosecutor, right? Now, from Zelensky's point of view, okay, these are foreign entities. These are not under the auspices of Ukraine. And so if we're having any notion of sovereignty, these organizations need to go. The issue that people are going to have is, why now? Why now? That looks weird. It looks like you're trying to prevent yourself from being prosecuted.
The timing is all wrong, and at the same time, they're not being dissolved. They are being merged into the prosecutor's office. So there somehow is an office within the building which has, NABU and special investigation for corruption stickers on the doors.
They're under Zelensky's thumb, which is the issue now. Zelensky
exactly.
Said,
yes. Yeah, because he basically appoints. He's the one who appoints the prosecutor, and there's been a few, as we've seen throughout the years. Somebody who wants to really do the job that he was appointed for, to the extent it impinges on U.S. interest or interest of people. Yeah, the guy is gone in no time. So yeah, it's all under control now. But you're right. Basically, there's no constitution that I know of in Ukraine that allows for the creation of something that was created sua generis, essentially. So it's almost like an admission, a tacit admission that the country is under colonial control, as it
Yes.
were.
Yeah.
This is,
I have a hypothesis, and I want to run it by you. I want to get your take on it. So Seymour Hersh puts out an article, and in the article, he points out, is this the end of Zelensky? Firing shot. Now, obviously, Hersh is not pulling this out of his ass. Hersh is getting this from some kind of source from the US government that floats this idea that we're going to get rid of Zelensky. All right. Then you immediately get a bunch of other articles that come out effectively saying Zelensky is being authoritarian, Zelensky is a problem, etc. All right. Fast forward, Zelensky says, I need to solidify my political space. So Yermak reshuffles the way the government is organized in order to make sure Zelensky is more solidified in his space. On top of that, Zelensky then, almost within a few days, goes after Nabu and Sapo. Almost immediately, out of the blue, you get all of these protests taking place over Ukraine where they are trashing Zelensky, calling Yermak a dick, saying we're not idiots. You need to get rid of him.
nice and neat. Yes.
Yeah, nice and neat. It's precisely nice and neat. Here's another one where they're going out, signs, flags, the works, out of the blue, the moment that you tried to get rid of those organizations. Now, simultaneously, you have a broadside attack on the issue of Russiagate. Now, I don't think these things are unconnected. Donald Trump, let's say for the moment that Donald Trump wanted to make a deal. Let's say that he wants to make a deal. And let's say that he knows that you can't make a deal with Putin. You can't push Putin on this. You don't have any cards. But you do have a rogue, quote unquote, actor in Zelensky that is your proxy that you've been using to try to effectively kill Russians and undermine the Russian state. And you know that he is a problem and impediment to anything that you need to do. And you say to yourself, we need to get rid of him. First firing shot was Seymour Hersh. Next firing shot was the articles that were coming out boosting Seymour Hersh. Third firing shot was these protests where Zelensky effectively ran into headlong by trying to get rid of these organizations. And this is like a Maidan 2.0 where the Trump administration believes that President Putin's deal or wants are maximalists, and within the concerns that Putin actually wants, that there may be some space to negotiate. He sees what's happening on the battlefield. They're getting crushed. Petrovsk is about to fall. Chasiv Yar is about to fall. They don't have the manpower in order to maintain those positions. They see the Patriot missiles getting blown up. They see Germany not having the capability of replacing them. They see Ukraine not having the military, the muscle, the manpower, the weapons to do anything in real substance. And Trump is like, all right, I want to make a deal and I need Zelensky to go. Is it possible that the protests, the attack on Russiagate, the media coordination, articles are coming out boosting the protests, where they're now saying that Zelensky has betrayed Ukraine. You have another one coming out, Kiev Post. We know how to stand up for our rights. Another one coming out of Politico, anger bills in Ukraine. Zelensky signs a law targeting corruption watchdog. And mind you, are we really to believe that all of these people have come out for Sapo and Nabu? How weird. Like these two organizations that I don't even know if Ukrainians fully are cognizant of, but has become the linchpin. We got people being thrown into cars with press vans. We have mothers who've lost their kids. And we're telling you that this is the issue. This is the thing that have galvanized Ukraine to come up. It seems like it's a Maidan 2.0. It seems like they're trying to get rid of Zelensky.
It seems like a perfectly well orchestrated regime change operation. Yes.
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 That's what it looks like.
And mind you, two things. When the corruption issue started becoming a thing, right? It was Seymour Hersh on Ancien Rafshani's show going underground. That was in 2023. So we already have Seymour Hersh. And now, as you perfectly summed up, he's being trotted out again, this time with the echo chamber to go with it.
Yes.
To create, this background. And last but not least, and this is something that just came down on the prompter, those Patriot deliveries won't happen until 2026.
That's right. They don't have them. Yeah, they don't have them.
So essentially, the idea is, if there were to be any kind of tacit understanding between Washington and Moscow, the idea would be, you and I need this guy to go. He's been an impediment to any kind of deal. This is, by all account, the consensual analysis in all quarters when it comes down to having somebody willing to somehow play ball and bring the whole thing down, right? At the same time, we need to create the environment so the guy loses his credibility. So militarily speaking, I'll give you the leeway so you do what you need to do on the battlefield. And this is what's happening right now, because the front is literally about to collapse. It might take, another 10 days, 2 weeks. But by all account, this hub of Pokrovsk is about to be enveloped completely. And with it, all possibilities for a significant amount of the front line on the Ukrainian side to be furnished in everything, essentially.
Yeah.
So it smells like the end, essentially. Then now we have, again, as you mentioned, all those articles being trotted out, being picked up and echoed. We have those crowds, rent a crowd. There's even elements of languages bearing on Maidan 2.0. I've seen that.
Yeah.
So it's yes, and as you said, we've had last month, this because let's not underestimate as well the perception matrix on this. It was a disaster for Kiev. The fallen soldiers, the swap, corpses.
So the exchange where they didn't want to pay the people the money for the deaths.
That's
of
right.
those.
That really, 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 hurt Kiev in the war of information. Definitely. We have a guy who's saying that he lost a grand total of 46,000 soldiers, and over a couple of weeks alone, you got about 7,000 soldiers, Ukrainian soldiers, being handed over to Kiev. That's about 1/7 of the entire total.
Yeah.
We don't know how many more tens of thousands more soldiers Russia may actually have on ice. Also, we'll find out today because they are meeting to probably discuss about the same issues. Since
Right.
the current Ukrainian delegation has no authority to discuss any other issue than humanitarian prisoner swaps and swapping over of dead soldiers. So this is it. I think this is the end of the line. And usually when we deal about the corruption, as far as Washington is concerned, and the guy is trying to go out of his way and suppress, when you have a fever, what do? You break the thermometer. That's what you do. But this is U.S. property. Those NABU and affiliates agencies, you don't touch that. We put that in place for a reason. So I don't know who advised him to do that. It might have been coming from Washington, but from a faction that's not in charge right now. Or maybe the idea was to allow him to think that he could get away with it, a little bit like they did with Saddam in April 1990.
I didn't even think about that. I just thought he was.
Can I go into Kuwait and pay myself in in real since the Kuwaiti don't want to pay for my 8-year war with Iran? Sure, no problem, Saddam. You are boys. We got your back. Those Bedouins. And they treated your women, they called your women prostitutes. Yeah, you can go to Kuwait City and just help yourself. And boom, we know what happened afterward, right?
Yeah.
So it's like this all over again to me. Just quite a
I didn't
stupid
even
move.
think about that. I kept thinking in terms of Zelensky was like, okay, they're trying to get rid of me. I need to solidify my politics, my political space. And so I need to get rid of these organizations that are from Washington. I need to reshape my government. I didn't even think of somebody saying, hey, man, those organizations are fair game. Oh, I didn't even think about that. Because, but if there was anybody who was sticking in Washington, they might have said, investigate Zelensky. And the moment that he finds out about it, he's like, I need to stop them from doing that.
It's going to take too long. That's the problem. The guy's got to go, and like yesterday.
Yeah.
We all agree on that. So they need this kind of regime change, or at least this internal tinkering to take place, and to take place fast. So we may see a palace coup, essentially. And they've got Zelensky waiting in the wings.
But see, that's the other question that I have. If Zelensky does go, let's say they finds a way to get rid of him, you still have this kind of Banderite political structure. Meaning it's not just Zelensky, it's all of them that's the issue. They got rid of the political opposition. They've been putting people in prison left and right. I'm surprised Klitschko's not in prison at this point. Who else would take over? That's what I'm confused about. And would that person have the political latitude to accept? Because from my point of view, let's say that Putin demands are maximalist, which I think they're reasonable, but Putin may say, in my mind, there's a certain amount that I'm willing to accept, that I'm willing to make a deal with, that we can negotiate within certain things as long as I get my core things accomplished. So the deal that I'm making, or what I'm putting out, is maximalist demands, but I'm willing to accept something less. And Trump, they may have had honest conversations where Trump is like, look, man, I don't care about this.
Make me look good, but let's put an end to this. Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
make me look like, I resolved the problem.
Right. And let me say
exactly. And this is what happened, because Putin said what? Putin said, ceasefire, fine. You want a ceasefire? You withdraw all Ukrainian troops unilaterally from all of the 4 oblasts.
Right.
This is where we stood.
And
then we would have a ceasefire. He said he would.
Well,
yes, he said it himself.
Well, let me say this.
You want a ceasefire? No, he wants, this is the red line. You unilaterally pull all of your troops out of the 4 oblasts that are now Russian Federation territories. You will have your ceasefire, and then we can sit down and start discussing substantive matters.
But would a Ukrainian president, or let's say if Zelensky...
But Zelensky doesn't want it. Zelensky wants the continuation, yes.
But would somebody else who came behind Zelensky be able to do that? That's my
point.
He'll
be briefed.
Yeah.
That's the price of getting kicked.
They're going to kill him, right? They're going to whack the guy. That's what I mean.
That's conditional on the incoming replacement to basically agree with this, yeah. And Zelensky is a military man. He understands that there's no point in continuing this. So I think politically it's viable for him to take act of a situation militarily, which as a military man he can only but integrate in his political positioning on this. Not to mention, we all know that everybody in Ukraine and their mother wants this whole thing to stop, to end, right? No more, grabbing people off the street, So.
But you don't think Zelensky would get whacked if he tried to do this? Like if Zelensky came in and says, "All right, I'm going to be more amenable. I want to end this conflict. I accept that those 5 regions are Russian territory." You really think that he could do that?
Well, there might be plans as we speak to accompany Zelensky being brought in with a few targeted assassinations to make sure some of the most radical far right.
Red wedding, night of the long knives.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just wow. You mentioned that it looks like the front is collapsing in Cross. I've been watching some of the videos coming out of that. That is amazing. I mean, Ukraine doesn't seem to have the manpower to
6 kilometers in one day.
Yeah.
The last 24 hours, yes. So they're wrapping it up. They're huge, huge cauldron. Essentially, that's game over right there. Because if you don't do a ceasefire, if you don't conclude a ceasefire right now, the Russians are gonna just zoom their way through the Dnieper. So it's gonna be politically. You have a window now. If you're the Trump administration, you have a window to somehow extricate yourself from this. Without your political capital being eaten into. But if you wait too long, you kind of hesitate. You might miss that window. Yeah, it's now. Now we're still, I think, in that paradigm where, what I what I quoted earlier, what I referred to earlier on this ceasefire paradigm, this condition, unilateral withdrawal from the four oblast.
Right.
Then we have a ceasefire, and then we start talking. And you can keep your regime in place, which is the
And
main thing. They want to keep the regime. They will give it a makeover. Well, for the time being, it seems like they would entertain this idea that yes, because the idea is to get those four oblasts internationally recognized in the text, in the international text. Remember, it never was about taking the whole of Ukraine. Now, if you don't understand this fundamental red line, and you're somehow hoping to pull victory out of the jaws of defeat, we will keep proceeding apace, and you won't be in a position where we're talking about 4 regions, but 6 regions, if not 8 regions.
Yeah. But I guess the thing is,
it's now or never, I think, in terms of
a deal.
Yes.
But if you're keeping the Banderite government in place, don't you still have the same problem? I mean, these guys are effectively Nazis in many respects. I mean, some of these people are lunatics.
It depends. The devil is in the detail. I mean, there might be, elements of negotiation we will never know about, bearing on getting rid of some of the most radical people.
Yeah.
The heads of battalions, and Zaluzhny, once Zaluzhny is installed, he will purge the current cabinet of Zelensky. Obviously, all those people are radioactive, so he's going to have to get rid of them. Some of them will be found dead in their bed. Others will be somehow, disappeared and to reappear in Moscow in a courtroom. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you cannot start doing anything of substance unless you change the head. That's the bottom line.
And do you think that's what's happening? They're effectively changing the head.
Well, the writing is on the wall. The writing is on the wall as we have visited today. Yes, it's all there. Because this would not have been possible, as you said. I mean, Ukrainian regulars are more concerned about their loved ones and trying to survive and escape the forced enrollment.
Mm-hmm.
And out of the blue, you find yourself. I mean, this is very neatly organized protest. Now, I guess the litmus test is going to see if those protests are prolonged over time. If they are, and turn into a Maidan 2.0, as we're hearing, then it will confirm what we're talking about. This is the test now. If it's just a yellow vest once a week on a Saturday afternoon, like we've seen in France, that's not gonna do it. You need a continued presence, intensifying presence, until it becomes with crowd that grows ever larger. Then you have something. We'll see.
I guess we'll see. I mean, they're starting with a template, and I guess the thought is other people are going to join with their own issues. I mean, because if you're a mom and your kid was killed, okay, you may go out and protest. You're pissed off. Or if you were,
that would be the perfect platform to get other people with their own respective issues to come and join, and
exactly.
And so doing enlarge the protest. Yes.
Wow, just wow! I just out the blue. That is amazing. From the battlefield conditions, though, do you see them acquiescing? Like, meaning the way that the Ukrainian military, for the most part, is being taken apart in these areas. Do you see this government ever negotiating in real faith, or it's just impossible for them to do that? I mean, because you would think that if you're having a battlefield collapse, that you would be more inclined to negotiate to stop the battlefield collapse. And as you say, maintain your presence as a government. But I don't see this government doing that.
No, because they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. Because that corruption graft issue is not going to go away. And so right now, the only lifeline they have to avoid having to face retribution for that is to carry out and wage and send people to die to a certain death, essentially, under the pretense that they have those wonder weapons or whatever crap they come up with to try to say, there's hope in what we're doing.
Has Putin responded to Trump's ultimatum? I don't remember. I don't think he did. I haven't seen
No,
anything coming out of him.
no, I mean, because it's just, it's all Trumpology. That's what I call Trumpology.
Yeah.
The Russians don't get caught up in yeah, this is for internal consumption.
What did they
Russian, the
say?
only thing that matters to them is what, we have a third round of negotiation in Istanbul, started today. We want concrete results through negotiation. If we can bring some of our boys back, right now, that's the only concrete thing we're looking at. The Americans know our positions. They know where we stand. We've been clear. We've repeated them. There are things below which we will not even sit down. And so things are pretty clear. I mean, the Russians are very consistent.
They have been.
When,
Do you see
you have
any
to hear and
movement?
listen to what they say.
Do you see any movement in these negotiations at all? Like, do you have any expectations of anything beyond prisoner exchange, body exchange?
Not unless the
Zelensky.
Zelensky situation is resolved. It's always been the problem from the get-go.
Right. Wow.
He is the impediment, to a ceasefire, because that's his war. His whole political legacy, if not his own persona, is identified with that ridiculous conflict. Tragically ridiculous, but tragic. And so that's his one-trick pony. That's what he does. And to the extent he either entertains conceding military defeat, or go all the way and destroy the country and him with it. That's not, at some point he has handlers and sponsors, who might want to fight another day, and they need things to somehow, for now, be frozen. And this is we might see that some kind of. Then we'll get into the issue of NATO countries, expanding peacekeepers. That will be another ferocious negotiation, but we're not there yet. Right now, the main thing is to get a ceasefire, and the Russians have been clear on their position.
One last question on the Zelensky front. I get the sense that the European leaders are backing Zelensky, meaning they want him to stay there because they want Ukrainians to continue to stay and die. Whereas Trump may not want, meaning Trump, what they want may be different. Trump wants a deal because he wants to feed his ego. Europe wants to keep them fighting and dying, almost like a staying maneuver, so they can build up their own militaries and everything else. It seems
well,
like
they have much to lose politically if he's allowed to do anything he wants that crosses his mind on between two lines of coke. So if we get a ceasefire, they are able to somehow save face in their own respective countries.
You mean the Europeans?
Yes, of
but
course.
See, I got the sense that the Europeans wanted to keep this going. Everything that they've said up to this point, I don't believe for a moment that Europe has the capability of putting 50,000 troops in Ukraine.
No, I think we discussed that once before, and on this very point, and I said their default position is to tell Zelensky, keep fighting, anything you need, we'll manage to get it for you. Right. Because they are not driving the political process. They're not talking to the Russians, so they're not negotiating over the head of Zelensky. The only one who's negotiating is Trump, the American master. So they, if anything, they wish that there can be something, that would, because militarily, I mean, they will find themselves on the same line as Zelensky. Yes. Because they've tied their political fate to him.
But I guess my point is they're saying that in order to keep the Russians fighting. The Russians are never going to accept the premise of European troops in Ukraine. But they will say
they will, but they will try. They will gesticulate. But like I said, we'll see what happens. This will be yet, another component of that substantive negotiation process. Right now, the main thing is to get a ceasefire.
Yeah,
acceptable for both sides. So we have a platform upon which we can start discussing substantive issues. Because right now, Istanbul is, like I said, humanitarian issues only.
Fantastic spot. A really great breakdown. I really appreciate this. Thank you for this. Arnaud Develay, he's an author, political analyst, international lawyer specializing in international criminal law. His latest book, Foreign Entanglements, Biden, Ukraine, and the Fracturing of America's Political Consensus. It seems very apt right now, considering what's taking place. Thank you for this, man. You be safe, okay? You have a good day.
Thank you, Jamal.
Bye-bye. All right, that was a fantastic breakdown. Fantastic breakdown. And I'm glad Arnaud could join me on the 200th show because he's been a great guest for the last, 200 shows. Oh, that is